MidSide. Today we're talking all about MidSide processing. Now we're going to cover MidSide EQ, stereo width, and stereo expansion, but we're going to start off with a quick explanation of what MidSide actually is and how it's different from regular left-right stereo. So let's get on into it. Alright, so this spectrum analyzer is on the master bus, and this little BrainWorks BX Solo is also on the master bus. And the spectrum analyzer is set to mid-side, and as you can see, we only have mid information going on because we are in mono. And as I bring in the stereo field, you'll see and hear the side information come up. Now, for this tutorial, you should really be on headphones. Otherwise, later you can try these things out for yourself, but you'll get the most out of this on headphones. All right, so here's the guitar and the organ. Now, right now they're both panned center, and you'll see that we have mid and side information going on down here. Now, watch and listen to the side information fall away as I solo the mid channel. So panned center, they still had side information. Let me bring the sides back on. All right, so now let's pan the guitar all the way left and the organ all the way right. And you can see in the spectrum analyzer, the reddish pink color is the side information creeping up over the green mid information. And we'll come back to that later. So with the guitar all the way left and the organ all the way right, if I were to drop this into mono, you kind of get what you expect. But now if I solo out the mid channel, same thing, sounds pretty much identical. Now you would think if I solo out the side channel that it would sound exactly the same, right? But no. Even though this is all the way left and all the way right, you might think that means that all of it's in the sides and there's no mids left, but that's not the case. Because mid-side is not technically the same thing as left, center, right in stereo. So here's our drum bus, and the drum bus has mid and side information going on. Let's solo out the mids only. You can hear how a lot of the hi-hat went away. Let me bring that back. Yeah, a lot of the brushwork went away as well. Mids only. And sides only. In the sides only, you can barely hear the snare and you pretty much can't hear the kick drum. So the best way to think about the difference between regular old left-right stereo and mid-side is this. What a stereo channel is two sources. And when the signal is equal in the left and in the right, then we call that centered. And that's just a trick of the ears. When things are equal out the left and the right, then they sound to us like it's directly in front of us or in the center. And that's what stereo is. And then when they're disproportionately left or right, dominant in one way or the other, then we get a sense of stereo. Now, mid-side is technically called the sum and difference. So the mid is actually the sum of the left and right. And the side is the difference, or left minus right, or vice versa. So it is a little different, and if that sounds confusing, you're not the only one. But the important part is to know that mid-side is not really the same as left-right stereo. Of course it's related because we're talking about one stereo field, but the important thing to know for mixing is that if we know how to use mid-side and not just left-right stereo, we can enhance the depth and width of our mixes dramatically. A lot more than you can with just using your pan pots and adjusting your left-right stereo. So here's the guitar panned halfway left, or about 9 o'clock, and the organ panned halfway right at about 3 o'clock. So I'm going to go back and forth between 9 and 3 o'clock and all the way left, and hard right, and you tell me which one sounds wider. Now, if you're sitting in front of a good pair of stereo speakers, you might think that the hard left and hard right sounds wider. But if you're on headphones, you might notice that the hard left and hard right sounds pretty unnatural. I don't even know if you could call it wider. And the reason why that is because in nature, we don't hear things in one ear only. So here with the guitar hard left and the organ hard right, the left ear is hearing 0 of the organ, and the right ear is hearing 0 of the guitar, which never really happens in nature. Now, if I bring these in just a hair, so they're almost entirely panned one way or the other, but not quite, it sounds much more natural. You might almost trick your ears and think that this actually sounds wider. So, whichever way you slice it, this is as wide as you can get with stereo left and right. So now let's compare this right here to the kind of width that we can get from mid-side. Do you think this is wider than this? The pan pots are in the same position, but what we've done is some mid-side EQ work. This is the guitar. It has a 3 dB boost at 400 Hertz in the sides only, and an equal and opposite cut in the mids only. And in the organ, we've done something similar, only we've done it at 1000 Hertz instead, up at 1K. So what we've done is boost the side information at 1K in the organ and dipped out the mids. We've done a 3 dB boost and a 3 dB cut, but this has enhanced the stereo field on the sides at 1K. If you want to create width without increasing the overall amount of frequencies in a given spectrum, then you want to do an equal and opposite cut in the mid-range. And now what we'll do is we'll turn both of these mid-side EQs off and compare. So that's a pretty subtle technique. Very useful, but pretty subtle. Now let's take a look at a way to do things a little more dramatically with mid-side and really widen out the mix. So this one here is by Voxengo, and this is free on their website, and this is called MSED, or MidSide Encoder Decoder. And this is a great free little plugin, and what this allows us to do is assign either mid or side for a channel. And we'll talk more about this plugin as we go. So what I've done here is duplicate the guitar and the organ and put one of these on each track and assign mid or side to each one. So now we have a fader that is the guitar mids and one for the guitar sides. And same thing for the organ. This is on the organ sides, and you'll see here I have mid-mute turned on. So the only thing going through this channel strip is the sides of the organ. And take a look at the automation in red. I now have a separate VCA for the mids of the guitar and the organ, and one for the sides of the guitar or the organ. So what we're going to do is play you the mix now with this automation of the mids being dominant, similar to the way we've been listening to it, and then it will automate the sides dominant about halfway through the loop. So take a listen now and see how much stereo expansion you hear. Yeah, everything is panned the same for the guitar and the organ. They're all panned either 40 left or 40 right, but when the automation happens and the sides come up, you can hear much more stereo expansion. There's a much more dramatic example of what you can do with MidSide. And that handy little plugin by Voxengo allows you to turn any plugin into MidSide Processing, whether the plugin's designed to or not. Because all you do is split your tracks, assign one track the mids and one track the sides, and then everything that you're processing on either track is now processing only mids or only sides. So this free little plugin right here opens up your entire mix to MidSide Processing. So let's go ahead and turn on some saturation just on the side of the organ. And another thing we can do on the organ is simply decrease the high band of multi-band compression here to let a little bit more of the highs through. So now we got a little more liveliness and expansion and crunch on the highs of the organ, only in the sides. Turn that fader down a little bit. And same thing on the sides of the guitar. Let's turn on an exciter here just on the sides of the guitar. And on the sides of the drums, let's turn on a transient shaper. This is a neat little trick, just adding some transient increase to the sides of the drums. Take a listen. A bypass. Back on. And let's add an exciter to the sides of the drums as well. Big difference. Bypass. You hear how much wider the drums get with the added upper end harmonics there? Let me bring it back on. So there's tons of options once you can split things into mid-side, and you don't necessarily need plugins that are designed to process mid-side. All you need is this free little plugin from Voxengo. So there's a bunch of great ideas about how you can widen up your mix and use mid-side processing to enhance the spatial and stereo field inside of your mix. But now let's look at a few examples of how to add depth to the mix with mid-side. Now, first things first, whenever you're messing around with mid-side, it's really easy to create phase issues in the low end. So this is the mid channel of the drums where there shouldn't be any side information, but this is a low shelf just on the sides, just as a precaution. So that's something to keep in mind, just cutting out any side information that mightn't be there just because the drum kit has so many microphones going. So little safety precaution there. But now to create depth in this mix, what we've done now is create another bus, and this bus is just called sides, and all of the sides of the drums, the guitars, and the organ are now all running through this bus. So this is going to give us a whole new layer of power of processing mid-side to add depth to the mix. And the first thing that we're going to do is add some sample delay to the sides. I'll bring the mix on, and I'm going to let you hear what happens when I add just a tiny amount of delay to the sides, separating it from the mids. Pretty interesting, huh? You can hear how the mix gets deeper just with a tiny bit of delay between the sides and the mid channels here. Let me crank it up a little more. Now let's add a little bit of analog delay to the sides. So this is the side channel, and we'll add a little bit of chorus. And then we're going to add an exciter. Now I'll bypass the inserts on the sides bus and go back and forth for you. Can you hear how the 3D quality of the mix opens up when these are on? Yeah, pretty cool. And another thing I've done is flip the polarity on the mids of the drums by 180. And let me turn this off and on so you can hear the difference. And this is really just preference, but you can play around with the polarity as well between the mids and sides and see if it adds a depth that you like. It will change the perception of the depth in your mix, but whether or not it's pleasurable and appealing is just something you've got to play around with. Now let's flip the polarity on the sides. Yeah, very interesting. These are great little techniques here to add more of a 3D and depth quality to your mix. And they're subtleties that really add up over time. So let's go back to the beginning with all of these additions that we've done to this mix turned off. Listen to the original, and then we'll compare it to all of this width and depth that we've done with MidSide. Well, what'd you think? Pretty interesting, huh? The real point of this video was to just give you ideas, to explain that MidSide is not the same as left-right stereo, and it's, in a sense, far more powerful. There's any number of things that you can do with it, so I hope this sparks some creativity and gets a bunch of good ideas going about how you can enhance your mix. Just remember to check your spectrum analyzer on your master bus to make sure you didn't create too much side information creeping up over the mid information, and watch out for any phase issues that you might create in the low end. But I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if there's anything else you want me to tackle, and I'll see you all on the next one.